We have a special guest on today's show to talk about his thoughts heading into his first season in the MLR, and we have a deeper conversation about the right rules, format, and structure to use in a fantasy MLR rugby league. Stay tuned. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, episode 2 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Got a jam-packed show for you. We got a special guest. He's entering his very first season in the MLR, so we're going to talk to him right away here. We're also going to dive deep into the fantasy rugby rules that we have set up and ask ourselves, are they the right rules to head into the 2022 season with? Obviously, my co-hosts are with me. Devin Vanderpool is here as always. And hey, a special guest in the Fantasy Ruckers studio. Matt Yee has traveled all the way from New York to me in South Central Pennsylvania. He is in the Fantasy Ruckers studio and he's live. So we're going to have a nice little conversation here. But guys, Matt, Vandy, got a special guest here. You excited? You finally, Vandy, have watched a few MLR games. You excited to finally dive deep here in fantasy rugby and answer those pressing questions you have for our special guest?
Oh yeah, like super excited about the season. I mean, right now it's kind of, you don't know all the positions, all the names. I'm used to kind of being able to pick out every player on the field, but I mean, that comes with time. But I mean, it's a beautiful game and I'm just ready to dive right into it. There's certain aspects of it that are just phenomenal, but yeah, super excited to talk to Co here and get ready with the season here.
Yeah, and just want to say it. I guess I moved up in the world. I moved from the couch to the chair in South Central PA. That's called moving up.
Yeah, I don't know. New York to Pennsylvania. That sounds like a step down.
Hey, it's underrated. The Mideast. Yeah, it's underrated.
The Big Apple to, I don't know, kind of a lot of farmland and other good stuff.
Hey, what's wrong with rural farmland?
Hey, I'm not saying. I know Tilsonburg is great too. Tilsonburg is great too. There we go. But yeah, so all of you must be wondering, Vandy, you mentioned it. Our special guest is Andrew Coe as we bring him on right now. Andrew, man, first season of the MLR. People already know you're one of the newest signings for, I guess now, Rugby New York. I know there was that official post by them. But Coe, glad to have you a part of the show, man. And excited to talk to a little bit of fantasy rugby with you.
I'm excited. Good for you guys for getting this thing going. I think the element of fantasy into rugby is something that the masses will enjoy. That's what I enjoy about football. So it's good to bring that aspect into rugby.
Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that because I feel like that's the big thing here, right? I feel like, and that will be one of my first questions to you, but I think everyone has dived into fantasy football, even fantasy basketball, even fantasy baseball, but no one has really talked about, these smaller niche sports, whether it be rugby or not. But it feels like there's the need for it, or people want it. And with this new North American league that people are, I guess, just getting into, it should be a lot of fun, eh?
Yeah, I mean, football is so easy. That's how I started watching. I joined a fantasy football league and never watched a football game before that. Fell in love with it, and now I'm sitting on my couch every Sunday watching all the games, watching Red Zone, making sure I'm up to date with all my players. Football is such an easy way to go about it because it's week by week, and rugby is the same. It's week by week. You're not checking your team every day. I know we're in a basketball league together, and I struggle with that, checking my team every single day. But rugby is the same, where it's week by week. You can set it on a Thursday and you're good for the weekend, and you don't have to check it until next Thursday.
And I will say that it is perfect on MLR's part to time it so that fantasy football or the football season just ends and then the MLR season just picks up as the Super Bowl kind of
I don't think that's a coincidence.
Oh,
no,
no,
it's
that
not a
doesn't feel like
coincidence at all.
Yeah.
All the losers, the fantasy losers, trying to get their money back.
Well, hey, hopefully, well, I guess there'll be 7 of them. Well, maybe one of these guys, they might be fantasy losers heading into this season. Maybe there'll be a guy in our league that's going to take this chip home. But hey, there'll be a few more, I guess, fantasy losers throughout this MLR season, but we'll figure it out. But yeah, that's our goal here, Co. We're just trying to grow a rugby or fantasy rugby community. And just get people watching the sport, and I think fantasy will do that. I mean, Vandy, you can speak on it, man. You weren't really that into fantasy football or even football in general, and then as soon as kind of our housemates brought up fantasy football and you started watching it, look at you, you're wearing your KC jersey, you're a diehard fan, and that started with fantasy football. Maybe we could do that with a few people with fantasy rugby. Maybe you could probably say a few things on that.
I feel like Cole hit the nail on the head with that one. Like I did fantasy hockey for probably 2 or 3 2 or 3 years probably before I ever tried. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, if in college those first couple of years really nothing going on. So hockey easy money. But I mean, as life kind of gets in the way, once setting the lineup one time, you got a game Sunday, it's Sunday. You didn't forget about the game on Tuesday night or Wednesday. Like yesterday in hockey, the Avalanche played at 3:00 in the afternoon. You think I set my lineup? Not a chance.
Man, exactly. That's the one thing that I think people who are playing football are going to resonate the most with, or fantasy football are going to resonate the most with. It's like you have one day to look forward to the entire week, and it's all the waiver pickups, all of the news breaking is all for the 1 week. It's all for the 1 day
build
week.
up, right? Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
and it helps set matchups and everything. It gives you time to think about it. I'm playing this guy. You can fade all that in. Okay, I'm going up against this. These guys are great on defense.
I mean, through 1 week of fantasy football, you're basically like the odds of your matchup is changing back and forth depending on what news has come out between Tuesday and Thursday, and it's crazy. It has you on the edge of your seat or sitting back like, all right, I'm relaxed this week. I'm going to take the dub.
Yeah.
So, Coach. So that's the ultimate goal. We're trying to create a community here to get people into the MLR. So for all of you that are maybe tuning into this show for the first time, this is the official podcast for MLR's first fantasy rugby league. It's a test league that I've created and brought these 2 guys on, and we have 6 others that will be joining in throughout the season to try to see how this kind of works, fine-tune the details, so hopefully it builds some traction and becomes a thing, a permanent thing in the MLR. So make sure to follow our journey to do that at the Fantasy Ruckers, wherever on social media. We release brand new episodes that will include interviews like this with Andrew Coe throughout the season, released every Wednesday. So make sure to follow us there. But let's dive into now, Co. There's a lot of pressing questions. We asked the people out on social media. Oh yeah, we got some questions out there for you. So we're going to get to those, but we have a few questions on our end. And before we dive into kind of the fantasy rugby side, I mean, it's your first season heading into the MLR, so we got to, I think, dive into that first. Man, what are your thoughts? I'm picturing. I don't know if you can see it here, but I think you can see one of our OG jerseys here that we had at good old Bill Crothers, a sevens tournament. I'm gonna show it up. I'm gonna pull it up for people at home to check out, and you'll probably get a kick out of this. Look at
those.
Let me just pull this up here
Look at
for the people on YouTube to check out.
Beautiful.
Let's pull this up here. Look at those. Look at the jerseys.
Whoa.
That was us, myself, Andrew Coe. We were heading out to New York in some classic sevens jerseys.
There's a funny story about those jerseys. Is we went down to New York and played in that tournament.
Yep.
And then 4 or 5 years later, Safe, who was on the team there, he went and played in that same tournament 5 years down the road, and they were selling one of our jerseys in their kit sale
really
area.
No doubt.
So
no way.
I don't know who it was on the team that left their jersey behind, but somebody did, and somebody.
We gotta find.
You know what I
That
think?
is
I think
awesome.
somebody sold their jersey.
Yeah,
they made
that
some
sounds
money.
like
They
it.
Yeah, that
reaped the
could be it
profits
too.
on that jersey.
It's a
That could
damn
be
nice
it,
jersey,
too.
and for you at home that are listening and on the YouTube video. So, for some backstory, so myself, and Matt here, we all went to Bill Carruthers Secondary School in Markham, Ontario, 30 minutes north of Toronto, and it was a sports school, to kind of put it simply. And we had some teachers there that really wanted to establish a rugby program, and this rugby program had a lot of perks. One of those being some tours and trips. And we took a sevens tournament actually to New York and got these funky jerseys created. They're basically what would you say, like a marching band suit, Co? They're kind of.
Yeah, I think the idea was, or a different time we had the Mounties,
Yeah.
then we went with this marching band tuxedo thingy.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
Yeah,
I
it
was
looked
there
cool
for
at
it.
Yeah,
the
it looks
tournament.
either way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did pretty all right. And for on YouTube, if you want to check it out, there's the team photo there. That was a throwback, man. That's got to be
That
like
was a
what,
throwback.
like at least like 5,
That
7
would've
years
been.
ago, 8 years ago.
You look bigger then than you do
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But
That
to my
jersey would be
point,
loose
though,
on me.
to my point though, it started from there, and now through a bunch of different winds and turns through your rugby career, you've ended up now in New York, heading into your first MLR season, your first professional season in your rugby career. How does it feel? What are your thoughts going? I mean, kickoff is what, just like a few weeks away. So
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
going through your mind right now, Co?
I mean, we have a week 1 bye, which I'm not too happy about, but no, it's fun. I've been following the league since it started, really, in the first couple seasons, and then I really started getting into it once Toronto got a team, I believe, in the 3rd season, because I know a ton of players on that team, and I always want to support the hometown of Toronto and support all the guys that I grew up playing with. And then last year, with the addition of the Rugby Network, it really made all the games really accessible, especially for people in Canada. So I would watch most of the games. If not, I'd watch all the highlights, and I really bought into it, just like a NFL weekend. When Sundays were happening, I was watching rugby on the Rugby Network. So no, it's fun, and yeah, I don't really know how to take it. Obviously, from what I'm hearing, it's a bit of a slog. You know, it's 16 weeks straight on, compared to where I'm from. I used to play sevens, full-time environment, but it was 2 weeks on, 4, 5, 6 weeks off, and then 2 weeks on again. So it's kind of a war of attrition with the 15s, like who can battle it through and put in good performances week after week.
Hey, speaking of you talking about mentioning Toronto there, and being from Toronto, what pulled you to Rugby United New York? What about it? What about the team was made you want to play for them?
I mean, I wanted to make sure that I covered all my bases. I didn't want to, I obviously wanted to play for Toronto, but I didn't want to, look nowhere else. So when I went into free agency and I started talking to a bunch of teams, I did my due diligence, and New York just seemed like the best fit for me. It just seemed like what they have going on here is perfect for my skill set and for my overall mindset and well-being and lifestyle. So I'm enjoying what they have here, and the first couple of weeks here have been amazing as well.
And before Vandy hops in here with his question, I guess that leads when it's the decision to go to rugby, I guess New York now. We got to get your opinion on the big change from Rugby United New York to Rugby New York. Is it the right change? Do you like the new name? I don't know. I was kind of vibing the Rooney, but I guess now what is it? RNY now, Rugby New York. What are your thoughts there?
It's my 3rd weekend here, so I don't know. I can't say too much about it.
Your poll is minimal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not the one making those types of decisions yet. Give me a couple more weeks and we'll see.
There you go.
No, it's fine. I mean, to me, it's whatever. But what needs to happen now is we do need to have a name and we need to have a logo, because that's what American sports teams do. So you can't just stick with Rugby New York. You have to pick some sort of logo so that people can get behind it and all the costumes can come out and all, like everything comes out with it. So I mean, the change is what it is. It's a matter of, okay, where do we go to now? The Washington football team, February 2nd, everyone's really excited to find out what their name is. So I'm sure everyone's really excited to find out what Rugby New York is as well.
Van, you go up with your next question here. I just want to say though, what a political, what a good like now that you're a pro player now, I feel like that, very sophisticated, very well thought answer. So we give a little kudos to you, Co, for that's test number 1. Rugby New York says thank you. That was good.
There you go.
But Vandy, what do you got here?
So I gotta ask, I guess when you were saying 2 weeks on, a couple weeks off, like did you ever have any kind of pregame rituals? You got the must-have foods, the must-do things. You wear your favorite pair of socks, don't wash your underwear, anything like that, or?
Yeah, so I wear these bright lime green spandex for all the games that I've played in. Doesn't really match up when I'm playing for Canada because the red and the lime green clash, but I've played them ever since I was playing at UBC. I wore these lime green spandex, and World Rugby actually is getting on my case, and they've warned me a couple of times that I might be fined.
Really?
I
don't know that.
Yeah. No, they don't see it because apparently it messes with the TV broadcast, the clash of colors.
Oh.
Sounds like a lame excuse.
But I mean, yeah, I called their bluff. I kept wearing them and no one ever said anything. I never got fined for it. So.
There you go.
I think now you gotta just slowly every game just show them a little bit more at the bottom of your shorts. Just
little bit more
game,
lag
just one by
game.
one. See when they catch on.
Hike up the shorts after your try.
Yeah.
That's
moon
hilarious.
the crowd. I'll put a Antonio Brown and pull my pants down.
All right, now we're expecting it. All right, so here you heard it here first, guys. So second weekend, first Rugby New York game, or we're hoping you score in that first match. But hey, whatever match you do score, we're getting the Antonio Brown pull down the pants. We get to see the gold yellow spandex and a few fines from World Rugby.
I'll tell you what. Whoever drafts me in this fantasy league can choose my try celebrations. How about that?
Okay.
Oh damn, dude, that's it, man. Some people might pick you first overall just to see that. Damn, that'll be sick. All right, you'll be worried now if any of these two guys, Vandy or Matt,
within reason, I should say.
Reason.
Yeah, the highlights coming out there. Andrew Koch cut for doing something wild that Vandy told him to do on the show.
I want you to be like Derek Lewis, take your pants off, and when she asks you why you did that, you go, "My balls are hot."
Oh my gosh. All right, so let's move on here. What's really interesting me, Co, especially with like the growth of the MLR, and I'm sure a lot of people are interested with this too. I think a lot of people, especially in other pro sports, especially the Big Four, are fascinated in kind of that free agent process when it comes to kind of selecting the team and moving. And I mean, look at it on NFL or MLB or NBA. I mean, when it's off season, there's not even games going on. The top news is free agent news. Where's this guy going? Where's that guy going? So it's interesting to see, kind of how that process works in those leagues as opposed to how it kind of works in the MLR. So can you I know you quickly mentioned it about how you did your due diligence through going through each teams, but can you just speak on once you finally made the decision to move on from your international sevens career and move on to pro rugby, what was kind of that process in, talking with the teams, making that decision, and then ultimately landing in New York?
Yeah, I did things a bit differently. Most guys have agents, then the agents address the teams. But coming from playing sevens, I never had an agent, so I pretty much just cold emailed a bunch of teams.
Okay. Wow, no doubt.
Yeah, and going through that process, it took me till the end of the process after I already signed the contracts to realize I should really get an agent to deal with this because it it was so stressful, just, making sure that you're getting, you get sent a contract, and I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what's in it, but yeah, it's for most guys, they go through the agent route. And rugby is a bit different, especially going into the season and the off season is, you play 6 months, and in NFL you play 6 months and then you're done for the next 6 months and you don't play at all. With rugby, you play 6 months, but then you can go play somewhere else. And a lot of guys go play somewhere else. A lot of guys go play internationally. So there's always opportunities for guys to get looks, guys to get contracts. If you're in the middle of a contract and you play really well in the off season, then maybe that can boost your value. Who knows? So rugby is a bit differently that way. But to answer your question, it's pretty, I don't know, pretty similar, going through now that it's professional, going through the full agency and that kind of stuff.
Now, without going into details, because you don't have to go into details or anything, but was there any like unique kind of, as you're going through negotiations with teams, was there any like unique things within the contract that they kind of like added or anything? Your
spandex green.
Yeah, like to kind of to kind of entice you. Like, was there? I'm assuming the location of New York had a little bit to do with it. Moving to somewhere new. Obviously, you're from Canada. You grew up in Toronto. Had experience out in Vancouver. Traveled the world with sevens, and maybe a brand new place with New York. But was there anything, and I guess on top of that, that kind of got your gears turning for a certain team?
Not really. I mean, I signed with New York, and then probably 2 or 3 weeks after I signed for New York, I went, damn, it's cold in New York. Why didn't I go to San Diego or somewhere else? But no, the only thing is, and I've heard horror stories of guys going through this process. If you sign a year-long deal, or if you sign a year-long contract, the team actually has your rights for the year after that as well until week 10 or so. And there's a certain, I don't know how it works with the trade window. There's a trade window. But a couple of guys who were trying to find new contracts, I have friends who were trying to find new contracts, and they theoretically didn't have a contract with their team, but the team still held on to their rights. So they couldn't go anywhere else, and no other team could sign them because the team had your rights. So you were kind of in like a little bit of a bind. But I think that comes with growing pains with the league. I'm sure, players hate it because they have no power in that. So I'm sure that will change as the league grows and goes through all these sort of growing pains.
Yeah, and you know what? Don't be too worried about representing yourself, because you know who else represented himself? Lamar Jackson. So you're basically Lamar Jackson of the MLR.
There we go. Big ball.
I'm
just picturing Co walking into the room, just being like, all right, lay it all out here. I'm the international sevens guy. Got the wheels. I'm friggin' sick. Look at me in Dubai scoring tries.
They hand the contract. You hand him your own contract. No.
I wrote this myself.
Yeah. Oh no, we're doing mine. I like this paper more.
It just has a number on it, and that's it.
That's
it's
what
not
Sauter
a napkin.
teaches you,
It's
man.
just got a year and a number. There you go.
That is what Sauter teaches you, eh? That's what Matt said. Sauter teaches you all those business skills.
They just teach you how to walk into the room, nothing else.
Yeah. Leave it.
I will recommend to all kids who want to go into rugby, get an agent, because the headache that I had for the month that I was talking to teams was a lot. So
all right, so Vandy, we're getting you an agent. You're gonna start training. San Diego Legion, start looking out. We already have one of our league members say your beard matches the San Diego Legion jerseys. So we're going out and we're gonna go get you training. The next all-star hooker in the MLR, Devin Vanderpool.
Nah, I'm way too busy working on my dad bod, right? My sports days are long gone. Maybe some beer league here and there, but not a chance.
No kidding.
Hey, Co, I got.
Sorry, Matt.
Go ahead, man.
They have your rights for the next 10 months or 10 games.
10 weeks. I'm not too sure on the specifics, but let's say hypothetically you sign a year contract.
Yep.
you go through, play your year.
Yep.
Then you try to go to another team. You can't just go to another team. You're not unrestricted.
Oh,
so
I guess my question was, you're still working on the same, like whatever you're paid per match, that just continues on until the next contract negotiation. It's just so you can't skip teams in the off season.
Yeah, I honestly, I'm not too sure on how that looks, because theoretically you don't have a contract.
Yeah,
so
that's why, I'm assuming.
I don't know. Yeah, the payment.
That's weird.
I don't know how
that's
that works.
Interesting.
Yeah,
well, it looks like Vandy's going to do some digging. He's going to be the next MLRPA representative, and he's going to be
there it is.
He's going to be looking. There we go. We got a real slot. So not only San Diego Legion, next All-Star hooker, and the MLRPA representative. He's going to be doing it all. And you got to fit in there, obviously, host and hopeful to be champion of the first Fantasy Ruckers League there too. So I guess that's
most important.
So hey, I got a busy year coming up, don't I?
you do have a busy year, man. We're gonna have to start getting.
From not knowing rugby to being the damn commissioner of the MLR.
That's why you need an agent, man. That's why Coach said you need an agent, dude, and it would be all sorted.
You want to be my agent, man? You didn't know the first one there.
I'm in.
Perfect.
There we go.
Hey, Coach. So playing for Rugby New York, Rugby United New York, whatever it is.
Hey, get it right.
You have a World Cup winner on your team as a scrum half.
Oh yeah.
What's it like training and playing with Andy Ellis, and how kind of influential is he on the rest of the team? Because I mean that's a huge name in
that's
rugby.
wild.
Yeah, he's a beauty. Like off field, he's so good with making sure that everyone's included, making sure team vibes are up. He's great for any sort of team building. He's awesome. And then his skills and vision on field is just kind of next level. Realistically, like if I'll be snoozing in a drill or something and he'll just pick me off with whoever's running at. He just knows the game so well that he's able to do that. But most of it is just off field, him being in those atmospheres, knowing who he is. Like everyone's looking up to this guy. So he's world class.
I feel like having that veteran presence, like that does so much for a team.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
You could put that in any sport, any team sport. You get a person who's that kind of established and with that much, like you said, their presence on and off the field, even making sure like new people feel even welcome, just sets the tone in the locker room.
Yeah. And it's funny.
When I was
No, go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
Thinking about signing with New York, the CEO who I was talking to put me in touch with Andy, and I had a 20-minute call with Andy.
Oh, that's cool.
He was on a beach in Bermuda. I was at home in Markham.
So then back to my thing about how they're throwing in little things. Oh, come on. The CEO's like, oh, okay, let's lure in Co here. Yeah. We're gonna get Andy on the phone. Hey, Andy, you're in Bermuda right now? Okay, you know what? That's perfect. We're gonna get Co here. This is what the New York lifestyle rugby pro player, star player is gonna be like. You're gonna be in Bermuda with Andy Ellis talking and
you like what you see there, kid? Come to New York.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, apparently it worked. So that's hilarious. But we got to move on to the fantasy rugby questions in just a second here. But I just have one last thing for you, just to add on to that, Co, about the leadership in the room, having a player like Andy on the squad. I mean, you're seeing that a lot. I mean, you look at the success that the Guiltinis had last season, and with the veteran players, international, like marquee players that they have on their teams, like you have Adam Ashley Cooper. You have Matt Guiteau. Obviously, it went a long way for that team to bring home a chip in their first season. Talk about kind of having that veteran presence. And I mean, you can maybe speak on this because you've seen it a little bit more, but you're noticing, especially in the MLR, a lot more player coaches. Some of these guys that are taking on the roles of having, I don't know if it's any different than just being, I guess, a captain or a leader. And maybe you've seen this. that you can speak onto it, but I have noticed that there are players that are taking on more of that coaching role while still having an actual effect on the field. I mean, that could be pretty huge, man. If you have a player coach, that's essentially a second set of eyes of game planning on the field.
Yeah, and it's a good transition piece for them. You know, their career's kind of wrapping up. You got to move to the U.S., which is a massive market. And then they can work on their skills, you know, lead by example on the field, but also off the field and work on their coaching skills as well. So it's really cool to see. They're kind of taking the approach similar to what the MLS is doing, you know, signing these big names that are on the later stages of their career to entice people to come out to all the games. And I mean, it works. You know, I remember when the Toronto Wolfpack signed Sonny Bill Williams, and I was like,
no,
I'm going to a game. Of course I'm going to a game. I have to see this guy play.
Yeah. So I guess more with that, hopefully the MLR can grow bigger and bigger. But you're right, though. I mean, they're also playing at places like the LA Coliseum. You know, I mean, there's just a lot of factors going into it that you're just trying to entice as many viewers to get eyes onto the screen. And I'm sure a player like Matt Guiteau and Adam Ashley Cooper
or John Ryberg.
John Ryberg now, yeah, man. Apparently, Vanny has just watched the final, so he's in love with John Ryberg because the guy scores 2 tries in 2 minutes in that match. But we'll get to that point.
That guy's an animal.
But let's get into now the fantasy rugby questions. So that I first brought this idea up to you, Ko, and you hadn't heard really anything like it, but you were all on board with it, which made me super amped to continue on with it. And now we're finally here, episode 2. And it's out everywhere, and people are intrigued with it. We got 6 other members on top of these 2 guys in the league now, and they're all amped to be a part of it, and they're all huge rugby fans. And now to finally have a fantasy element is huge for them. I guess the first question I got to ask you before we kind of dive into like the actual stats and how we're going to do this, we mentioned at the top of the interview that you have played fantasy football. We're all in a fantasy basketball league together. You've participated in a bunch of other fantasy sports. So you've been on the fantasy player side of it, but now hearing that there's now people going to be tracking you and your stats and having reaction to how you play, and you'll be kind of that guy that now we're following. What does that sound like, and how does that feel? I mean, it's got to be because you're now on both sides of it, so it's got to be hilarious.
It is cool. It is cool.
Yeah, under pressure.
I'm
exactly.
Sure, yeah. I'm sure, hopefully, none of the guys in this league are going to throw out some hate mail like people do in the NFL. But I wouldn't put it past Matt Yee. That guy.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Hey, if I draft you and you're not producing, there's going to be some DMs, some text messages coming your way.
Uh-oh.
You better watch out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
It's cool though.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's different. It's you can't really think about it too much.
That's a good way
it
to
is
put
what
it
is.
You can't wear it, yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell he's a pro player now because that's a typical answer that any guy in the NFL would have. He's like, oh, you don't think about it. And then, he's checking his stats. Oh, okay, I scored 2 tries today. Okay, that's 14. Okay, Matt has me on his team. He'd had a good day today.
Boys are
that's
fine,
all right.
Let's go.
But that's funny. Hey, but now that you said that whoever drafts you gets to choose your first celebration, that might entice someone. Hey, they might have that little more leniency to not get as mad at you. At the beginning if you're not producing, but hey, we're a fan of Andrew Ko on this show, so we're always pulling big things, big tries all season long.
That.
So,
let's go.
It's gonna be good, but let's get into it. Fantasy strategies. I mean, Matt, you've been talking a lot about fantasy strategies and stuff like that. Any tips that you want to ask with Ko now that we've got a player on for you ahead of as you do your research into the league and your draft strategy?
Yeah, I got a big one actually, and this is pretty big for the positions. Are you coming on to Rugby United as 10 or 15 or center?
I'm playing mostly on the wing, maybe some fullback.
Okay. So back 3. Are you?
I'll tell you, I'm not kicking for points. So
that was going to be my next question. Hey, that's all right.
No, I wanted to see that. Okay.
I gave that dream up long ago. I can't kick for points anymore.
All I need from you, Ko, is you're going to keep working at it. I want to see Ko at least line it up. I want to see you at least one kick. I've seen, man. Come on.
I'll whip out the tea at practice, and some of the guys will look at me like, what
all
are
right,
you
tell
doing?
Andy you're gonna be good, man. You'll be good. You'll trust me. I know in one of those blowouts, dude, like your guys are up by 30 points. Come on, give me a kick. I know Holland's Head did really good last year, but hey, come on, you can step up a little bit.
Let me add a little wager to the show. If you end up making a conversion this season, I'll add $50 to the pot.
Oh, the charity pot. Okay. I don't know if you've heard about this.
Or a penalty.
I don't know if you heard about this, code, but the winner of our league is going to win a $100 donation to a charity of their choice. Vandy has already said he's going to double that. And now I guess we got Matt over here banking on you making a conversion. So we'll see that. Hey, so next time you line up, try not to be too pressured about it, that there's $50 on the line for a good cause. So just try not to get that to your head. But speaking of kicks and stuff, let's go into, or let me tell you briefly kind of the rules, because we're going to have a deeper conversation in this episode about that, but kind of just your initial thoughts, because we are hoping to have you on hopefully throughout the series of this season, and hopefully longer as this fantasy sports and fantasy rugby thing keeps on growing. We're counting tries, we're counting try assists, we're hopefully counting try distance, conversions, penalties are in there as well. You know, what are your thoughts on there, kind of adding that points aspect? We got, you know, I noticed that, you know, kickers and conversion makers were really heavy, but, you know, you had some hookers in there that were, you know, getting mauls in and scoring tries that way as well. It just adds a dynamic, but seeing that scoring and what we're tallying here, fantasy sports coming to the MLR. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you're going to have to really pay attention to the games, because different teams have different strategies. So you can take a hooker from a team that you know is going to do a lot of mauls, especially in the 22. Then, you know, they're probably more likely to score tries. But if you're playing a loose and fast team that love to spin the ball and have lots of ball skills, then you're probably going to want to take a wing or, you know, a 10
draft
fullback. Yeah, little plug, draft me. So it's, you got to really base, you know, there could be a really good hooker just playing on a team that doesn't maul as often. So you got to base who you're picking on the team that they play on, which is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, should be interesting.
Nice, yeah, and you know, that was, I mean, you took basically what I was thinking the whole time. I wasn't trying to tell anybody because I'm trying to win the league.
Sorry,
thanks
buddy.
for spilling the beans on that one. But yeah, like Co's saying, I think hooker's going to be a big position in this. I mean, if chances are, if he's on a team that mauls a lot, he's going to be scoring from the maul. Chances are, if on a team that doesn't maul a lot, he might find himself on the wing, and kind of that's where I'm thinking is he's going to be the difference maker in this league.
Should be interesting. But yeah, we're gonna continue the conversation here on our YouTube page. So if you're listening to the podcast, the interview is going to end here. But we're gonna have the full extended interview on our YouTube channel. But before we kind of move on here on the podcast, there were some pressing people here on social media asking you some questions. So, and some of them might be actually people that you may know. So we'll open up.
I'm sure they are.
some funnier ones here. So, your good old boy, your good old boys, I should say, the Gam family. They tuned in here, and it was actually Jer Gam. That wants to know something important. So we'll start with the light one here before we get into some of the more serious fantasy rugby questions from some of our league members and other people interested in fantasy rugby. But Jer Gam wants to know, which Gam brother is the real GOAT?
That's I'm gonna go with the oldest Gam brother. I can't remember his name, but the oldest Gam brother.
Come on, you can't forget about Alex Gam.
Alex Gam, there it is. Alex
there
Gam
we
is
go.
the real GOAT.
He says none of the above. That's funny. So there we go. Jared Gam, Alex Gam.
Actually, let me change my answer. Dieter Gam, the OG Gam. He's the GOAT.
There we go. So yeah, let's Gam had to hop in there with a little funny question. But here, let's move on to some actual rugby questions here. A lot of people actually interested in your background with Rugby Canada and kind of the thoughts behind the league, and also maybe your involvement with international rugby itself. But before we go there, someone's actually interested, just as I guess rugby on a high performance level first. I'm just trying to pull up his name here that he posted on Reddit. His name is X Cotta on Reddit. He's a New England Free Jacks fan, but he's asking those trackers that we all notice that the professional rugby players wear on their backs for the data that they collect at the games. I'm not sure. I'm assuming you guys wear one for sevens for Rugby Canada and your sevens, and you had experience with that. So he's wondering actually what data that tracker tracks and how much of it is analyzed by your team. What do they use? And then what do they share with you guys to improve your guys' performance? That was Xcod on Reddit wanting to know kind of the shtick behind those trackers.
Yeah, they do quite a bit, actually. They'll track max speed, meters, how fast you're going at any given time. And what you really want to focus on is the high metabolic load. So that's when you are running fast for a certain speed for a certain amount of meters. That's really what you look at. You can also look at max speed as well. So the way we do it, because our ownership group is based out of New Zealand. So we have someone in New Zealand. We have a strength and conditioning coach here, but all of the
and this is for Rugby New York, or is this
for Rugby New York?
Okay.
So we send all of our data to our analyst in New Zealand, who then interprets it, tells us where we are, tells, if guys aren't working as hard, then they need to do more. If guys are working too hard, they'll have their meters pulled back. It's all put into a plan to make sure that we're not running too much, but so that we're getting the right amount of load.
Nice. I heard those things tell you if you've had a concussion or not. Every time you get hit, I heard it tells you that you get smoked.
It actually tells you a collision. I don't know how accurate they are, because sometimes I'll just be hitting it to get a couple extra collisions.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I did to make myself feel like I made a tackle or something. Just kind of hit my shoulders a little
bit. Rub a little grass on you. Hit your back
there you go.
Times.
Roll around in the mud a few times. That's how you gotta do it.
And
the key to that is during the warm up, you got to go really hard.
Yep.
So that the meters get boosted up.
Yeah.
And Hokie from San Diego, he's actually a league member, one of our league members in our first fantasy rugby league. He actually has a few questions here for you. So his first question is, what are the 3 things that need to happen in order to get Rugby Canada back on track? I know Rugby Canada has had some struggles over the past few years in terms of their competitiveness within the international rugby landscape. So he wants your thoughts on what Rugby Canada do to get better moving forward.
I mean, I wish I had the answer. If I had the answer, I wouldn't be on here. Hopefully, I'd be running the ship up there. Yeah, it's hard. But, I think the big thing that Rugby Canada has always lacked is the gap between high school and university. Because a lot of players play in high school, but then there's not really feasibility in the university landscape because there's not as much scholarships, there's not as much opportunity, and that's when you kind of need to make your life decision, like, am I going to school, am I pursuing rugby, what am I doing? So bridging that gap between the age grade stuff and the senior men's stuff is very important, but sort of big picture, you need to rebuild the relationship between Rugby Canada and all of its constituents, because that relationship has been so poor for so long, and it's such a negative connotation when you hear Rugby Canada because no one really trusts them. So rebuilding that relationship will hopefully improve so that people can start giving back to Rugby Canada, start really appreciating them, trusting them to make the right decisions, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that should we'll see whether or not, because it has. I know Matt and I have been watching Rugby Canada games, or at least we try to as much as we can. And Vandy, you'll learn quickly as if you watch any of those games. And sometimes it's heartbreaking to watch those games when you're pulling so hard for these guys, right? Because I don't know. I thought at least when we were younger, Cohen, maybe this was before your Rugby Canada days. When you're actually part of the program, but they looked so promising at one point, and then I don't know, it just seems like it hit a plateau, and then it hasn't looked as great as it has in the recent years. So it is interesting.
And I think a big issue with that is the game only turned professional in the 90s, like late 90s. And as the rest of the world kind of progressed, you have the England, New Zealand, Australia, European countries start playing professional. For the past 25 years, we haven't been professional until the MLR came up 4 or 5 years ago. So hopefully the MLR will help build, gives kids an opportunity to keep playing, gives them something to strive for. I think the MLR will help bridge a lot of those gaps so that it's not all on Rugby Canada.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, maybe an addition of another Canadian team on top of Toronto might help with that too.
I am rooting so hard for a Vancouver team. I think it needs to happen. There's facilities for it. There's players for it. There's fans for it. I don't understand why there isn't a team there.
Half the people on the Arrows are from Vancouver, Victoria, or somewhere around BC. I mean, why make them travel?
Yeah, you have a ton of people who love BC but they don't want to move out of BC, but they're really good rugby players. So why not give them that option? And for overseas guys, Vancouver is a beautiful place to go live. So why not go?
Yeah. You won't have to deal with the Toronto snow during the season, early parts of the season too. So
you wouldn't have to deal with being on the road for the first half of the season.
Yeah,
because that's always something that gets international players.
Yeah,
love to be on the road for 6 months.
So should be interesting. And then just the last couple of questions here, Co, before we wrap up the podcast portion of this interview. Austin Inslee. Well, a little throwback. Austin Inslee, back at Bill Carruthers, one of Maddie's boys here. We got to play with him a little bit. So he's asking, who was your biggest influence in rugby growing up? That's what Inslee wants to know. I'm sure a lot of people want to know that because, I mean, you've gone so far from the days that we were playing together. I'm sure there was a lot of people that had a lot of influence.
Yeah, a ton. Obviously, my dad. He's the one who put me in rugby. He coached me all through age grade with Markham Irish.
Good old Martin.
Good old Martin.
Go U16 Markham Irish. Shout out to Markham Irish. I stole one of the, I shouldn't say steal, but I got one of the jerseys.
You got one of the jerseys.
Call what it is. Stealing.
I got one of the jerseys there that I was able to sneak. One of the nicer jerseys that I've ever worn under Martin Co. But yeah, so your dad, obviously huge
my dad
influence.
And then obviously Kutch and DeVries. Great rugby coaches, but also great life mentors. They made sure I was in line, and my dad definitely did as well, but made sure I was in line. And
just so people know, Kutch and DeVries are our rugby coaches in high school from Bill Carruthers, Mr. McCutcheon, Andrew McCutcheon, and Mike DeVries. They were fantastic. A huge part on a lot of our rugby growth throughout those years, whether we stuck with it or not. But it was huge. But yeah, I could see why
they were amazing, just in terms of understanding that you have to have fun with things, and having fun is literally the name of the game. You have to enjoy what you do, but also you should be held to a certain accountability.
For sure. And I guess we'll just wrap up with this last question here. I think this is a good way to wrap up this podcast portion. This is one of your boys, Matt. So I'll let you read this question.
This is from Isaac Kelly from UBC or White Rock.
BC guy.
Basically. He's asking team you're most nervous to play against and team you're most excited to play against.
Both in the same answer would be Toronto.
Really? Okay.
Home or away? Home
Both.
or away?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter to me. Just playing Toronto, I'm very excited to play them. I get to play against a bunch of my friends, but I'm also extremely nervous because I really want to put in a good performance, especially playing in Toronto. I would say, just yeah, I want to do well, and there's that added pressure of coming home. I'm sure my parents have season tickets, but I'm sure all my aunts and my family and my cousins and high school friends will all come out and watch as well. So yeah, that's definitely nerve wracking and but very exciting at the same time.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun one of
that will
playing
be
in
a
front
fun
of
one.
all the friends and
Oh
family.
yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Also to get a little shot in at Toronto too, you coming in, Co's coming in, still
Yeah.
spoil the spirits a little bit for a Toronto homecoming, which should be fun and real exciting. We'll be there watching. Hey, if we can time it right too, Co, you'll be doing that celebration of whoever drafts you on that day, maybe. So we'll see. I'll have to mark it down on the calendar.
Yeah, maybe. You never
we'll
know.
want you to score a try earlier, but if we had to choose a second day, it'd be that day so that we can pin it on the Rugby Network and have that clip over and over and over again. We'll absolutely love it. But that's going to do the podcast portion of this interview. Co, stick around. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into maybe your experiences in Tokyo. Just quickly, or a few more questions.
Sure.
But if you want to listen to that part of the interview, head to our YouTube page, head to our YouTube channel at the Fantasy Ruckers. We're going to continue this interview. On the podcast portion, we're going to be moving on to the rules, format, and scoring discussion and see where we can go from there. So make sure to follow and like, and we'll have Co throughout the season as well to be on this show at the Fantasy Ruckers. So you can head to our YouTube page for the rest of the conversation. So yeah, let's talk about that, Co. Now we've gotten the fantasy rugby out there, and we won't keep you too much longer. Maybe 5 minutes here. You mentioned it here. International sevens player. You had the Canadian sevens experience. It looked like a lot of fun. It seemed like every time I checked your Instagram, you were somewhere else. And you were somewhere brand new, which was really, really cool. Let's just hop right into Tokyo, man. How was it? It
Straight into it.
Yeah,
straight
just
into
dive
it.
on into her.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. Obviously, it's a life goal. It's something that I'll have forever. It's a memory that will live on, and a story that I'm taking to my grave with me. But it's funny looking back. I'm probably not going to remember any of the rugby part of it. I'm not going to remember what I did out there. I'm not going to remember too much of anything that has to do with rugby. It's just being with the team in this crazy cycle of the Olympics, where you're so nervous whether you're going to go or not. You have to perform well. You have to make sure that it's just being within that team atmosphere that made it so amazing. But if COVID weren't a thing, and if that is really a damper on my Olympic experience, because what I wanted to do, I wanted to go to the Olympics and stay afterwards. I wanted to tour around Japan. I wanted to go support the various other Canadian teams that were playing. I wanted to meet other athletes. I really mingle, but COVID took all that away. So it was very underwhelming looking back on that, just because we were only in Tokyo for maybe 6 days, 7 days. We showed up. We had 3 days of preparation, and then we played for 3 days, and then they kick you out. So they reduce the COVID numbers. So that kind of put a hamper on things, but overall it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the one thing that stuck out to me was, I think you took kind of like, I think you did like a summary video once you got back of just like the whole experience, of like a quick little video of like everything that you did. And even from that like short 50-second clip, like that looked amazing. Even if it was just, I guess, 6 days there, you made the most of it while you're there.
Yeah.
And I keep looking back too, because it's funny. We had a conversation, it must have been like 2 years ago, right? About when they first announced that you guys weren't going to be going. and we had a conversation about kind of the heartbreak and all that. All that went behind that, and then to kind of then talk to you a year later about the experience you went through, and now you going on to play pro rugby. It's just so many things can happen onto these 2 years, but it's incredible. I don't know.
It's a year like no other because
yeah.
I hate talking about COVID because everyone talks about COVID, but you didn't know what was going on. Our season got canceled in March, and then it was a month of, okay, if we don't have a season, how are we going to play? We still have to prepare for Tokyo. So you're still in the mindset that I'm still going to the Olympics. I'm still fighting for a spot to go to the Olympics. And then we heard that Canada was pulling out. So Canada was pulling out, but the Olympics were still happening. And then you're like, I'm going to be so pissed if the Olympics happen, but then Canada decided to pull out. Like, damn. And then you hear that the Olympics get postponed a year. And then it's a whole other year of like, well, you're just checking the COVID numbers and be like, what's happening? And then the Japanese people were protesting because they didn't want fans. Even the months leading up to it was, is this really happening? What is going on? Because then you see the COVID numbers starting to come up and you're like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. They're going to cancel it. Yeah. But the amount of ups and downs, especially probably 2 months before we actually took off to Tokyo, was pretty crazy. And then the come down, everyone talks about the come down after the Olympics. It really, really hits home because you work so hard to get to this one pinnacle, and then it's over in a week, and then you're like, okay, like now what do I do?
Well, I guess you just pack up your things, move to New York, and go play some pro rugby.
Call it a day,
Call it a day. I guess that's what you do. So, no, that's awesome, and I'm sure we'll have another opportunity, Ko, if you would let us, to set up maybe like a different interview, and we can go into more depth about your conversation or your experience kind of there, and just I think your whole rugby journey, because I think it's one of the more fascinating ones, and I think a lot of people would be really interested, especially people if our goal here is to grow the sport. Is to kind of it's to get people to play the sport here in North America. And I think if a lot of people kind of learn what goes behind making the professional level, a lot of people might be more interested in taking that route, because I don't think a lot of people know how to take it. Maybe they're learning about too late. They're just picking up in high school or whatever. So,
and I think if the MLR wants to grow, it needs to. And Vandy, when you're the MLR commissioner, I'll tell you this. Okay?
I'm listening.
You really need to market the players so that fans can get behind players, because that's what the NFL does and that's what the NBA does, and it's so marketable because people go to games to watch players. But then you look at the NHL, and they don't do a very good job of marketing their players, and that's why ticket sales have not been. Yeah, they haven't been as good. So, next steps for the MLR is to really start marketing the key marquee players to come in.
And I think
it's even sorry to cut you off, Ryan.
Go ahead,
even
Ben.
in football, like just to just watch football on the weekend, and they even like as Kansas City, they say Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce versus or like Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Exactly what you said. They market a player. They almost brand that player.
Yeah.
No, Go ahead.
It'll, because there's not that much money in rugby currently, but it'll add a different element so that players can get compensated, so that people can still work towards making more money or being more famous, whatever it is. And people in the NFL, they're not starters, they're practice squad guys, or they're on the cusp or whatever, but they want to be Patrick Mahomes. They keep working until they are Patrick Mahomes, right? So the MLR should do that as well, where you want to be, Ditto or DTH or someone, so that you keep working so that you can be that person and get all these perks that come along with it.
And I think that's what we're trying to do with fantasy rugby here, right? And I think that's a large part why you have that type of branding in fantasy football, is because fantasy rugby, although it it is ultimately the sport itself is a team sport. Fantasy sports highlights individual performances. You know, at the end of the day, when you're talking about just rugby as a fan and just watching rugby, whoever scores the tries scores. Obviously, you have an affinity towards certain players, but at the end of the day, you just want your team to win. But when it comes to fantasy rugby, you have various players from various teams.
Yep.
You're not rooting for any certain teams.
Yeah.
You're rooting for these individual players, and I think that will just elevate having that personal player brand. And I just want to I guess it'll be the first announcement here for us is that we are officially a players podcast here. We are going to announce it here. So we're all about the players. And
you heard it here first.
You heard it here first. We got the future player representative in Devin Vanderpool to get all these players, whatever they can get. But we're always going to root for the players, and I think that's a big way to kind of get people enticed to this sport as well. And watching the MLR is get fans of Matt Gateau to come watch MLR. Get fans of Andrew Coe to come on and watch the MLR. And yes, maybe it's not the same high level of rugby as the All Blacks or Super Rugby, but you can get behind guys that you know and have a connection with, and that could be through fantasy rugby, which I think would add a different element. So hey, we're all just trying to contribute to that.
That's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah. So we'll see if we can make that happen, and I think in the meantime, as we make it grow, Vandy.
And like even mentioning, you know, certain teams might not get as much attention. Like let's say like the Jets, let's say, might not get as much attention as Dallas. But when fantasy, it brings attention to those games because now you might have, like you said, the Jets only won 3-4 games this year. But if you have, let's say, Michael Carter, the guy was putting up, you know, bottom end RB1 numbers, it's going to draw you to games or teams that you're not going to watch. You don't support a team anymore. You support players. So that alone brings so much kind of output to the league because now you're watching various games. You're watching all the games. Like,
so what Vandy's saying, Co, is when he drafts you first overall in this
watching all your
draft
games
in a couple weeks,
there it is.
Watching all your games,
all
and
your games, baby.
even when you score no tries or you don't have any try assists or anything like that, he's still gonna love you. He's still gonna play you, and he's still gonna root for you the following week.
That's right.
I appreciate that.
There we go. So OBJ all the way till you got traded.
So that's all the questions for me that I had set up, but I'm going to give an opportunity for these two guys. So our fantasy league just starts in like 3 weeks, and we got 6 other members. They had their chance at answering or asking questions for Co. I'm going to give these two guys one final question before they head into their draft. You guys got one question to ask Co. Any inside scoop you want to give you an upper edge on this MLR fantasy season? What do you guys got? Matt, I'll let you go first, man.
All right. Not sure if you can answer this yet, but are you for sure going to be in the 23 come week 2 if no injuries happen?
You got to talk to the coach about that one. I don't pick the team.
Give me his number.
Are you telling me there's a winger 15 better than you though?
I'm not saying anything, right? I'm just here so I don't get fined.
He's putting.
I'm only here so I don't get fined.
So he's gonna go. He's just putting his head down. He's gonna practice his conversions, and hopefully we'll see him on match day. That's it. But Vandy, what do you got?
I will say. Okay, I think the waiver wire will be very important. As I mentioned earlier, it's a war of attrition. So making sure you're on the waiver wire and you're watching the games, and you know if one guy does really well that you didn't expect to do well, you should pick him up because more likely than not he'll get the shot the next week as well.
Well, I was noticing too, like just watching that finals from last year. They throw up quite a bit of substitutions. Like there was like 7 or 8 guys on that list. Not all of them obviously got subbed in, but kind of that'll be an interesting point or kind of facet of the game to watch for myself is because, I don't know how many guys are just gonna be plug and play. You can just forget them. You put them in. They're gonna be there every week. They're gonna get top minutes. Like that I think will be the hardest curve for me is figuring out, I guess just how many minutes guys are playing.
Yeah. And I think Matt mentioned it in your first podcast was it depends on what position they play as well. Yeah. Because the front row are coming on, sometimes at half they'll come on and make a change. Sometimes at 50 minutes. So you have a guy who's going to play 30 minutes and you can get as many points in 30 minutes as the other guy did in 50 minutes.
Yep.
So substitutions will play a big role.
Yeah. All right. And I'll be nice, Vandy. I won't count that as a question. So if you got any last itching question for Co here to give you an inside scoop here as our in-house kind of MLR newbie and new fantasy rugby guy, as man of the people representing new MLR fans, what are the people asking? What do you need to ask Co to get off your chest?
Well, I'm not going to ask any questions related to fantasy. Instead, I'm going to ask you what has to be the most embarrassing moment of your rugby career. You're on your way to a try.
Oh, no.
You fall on your face in the mud. I want that story.
It was my first ever Canada 15s tour. I played 2 previous games, and because of injury, I started in the game that was played in Hamilton, Ontario, my first game in Toronto. And it's a World Cup qualifying game. So we're playing the US. This game is like very high pressure. There's a home and away. So by aggregate, whoever wins goes to the World Cup. And I get the ball and I'm probably like 30 meters out. I make a break, go for the end zone. I'm in the end zone and all I have to do is put the ball down. But I decided to get kind of cheeky and put it down with one hand. And I swear I got it, and I look up, and the ref goes to the TMO. And I look up, and there's just the ball dropping out of my hand in the end zone. And from that, like, everyone starts booing. Everyone just like, there's probably 30,000 home fans, Canadian fans, just like yelling at me. I'm like, oh my God. And then I play on the wing, so I'm closest to the stadium and all the people, and people just are heckling me the rest of the game. Like, man, like, this sucks.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that was bad.
So I guess what you're telling people then, and great question, Vanny, because this is a huge one for the people. So you've learned your lesson, and you won't be doing that in the MLR. That won't happen in the MLR.
Next time you
for the ball, 2 hands.
Okay, 2 hands, ball placed. And then dope celebration, and then you're going
down. And then we celebrate.
There we go. But that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate you coming on. I think you gave a lot of insight.
I'm going to be following along. Legally, I'm not allowed to bet or play in any fantasy or any of that stuff with rugby, but I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm sure there will be some. There.
We need to put a disclaimer. Andrew Coe is not participating in
exactly,
this fantasy
exactly.
Okay, so we'll make sure to make that clear. But we're gonna be fun. And can we? Is it official? Can we call Andrew Coe a friend of the show?
I think you can. I think Andrew Coe, friend of the pod. Let's
friend
go.
of the pod. Hopefully we have him throughout the season. Yeah, we're hopefully we can get you. We hopefully can catch you throughout the season, Co, and just get your thoughts, especially in your first MLR season. Just, I think to catch someone just entering it and just kind of their experiences throughout their first pro league and kind of how it grows and how you grow ultimately throughout the season is going to be a fun one to keep track on. I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers and people in our league, our fantasy league, are going to want to tag along to, especially that guy that ends up drafting you, whether it be Vandy, Matt, or any of the other guys in our league. So we'll be watching, man, and we hope to have you on soon again. And good luck this season, man. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good luck,
Thank
man.
you. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Co. Appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, thanks for coming
No
out,
worries.
man. Appreciate it.
We'll see you guys soon.
All right. Yeah, that was Andrew Coe. What an interview. I mean, that went a lot longer, guys, than I expected. But I mean, it's hard when you're asking that guy so many. I feel like I can ask so many things. I'm so interested in what it's like to join a league that's brand new. I don't know. It was a lot of information there that I feel like I could break down.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. I mean, I was trying to pull out some inside scoops, for the people, obviously for the people, but he wasn't budging. He's too professional. Can't pull out the.
That guy's had some media training. He was
nailing
the questions.
Hey, we're not gonna be able to get anything too inside out of him.
That was smart. See, I just get talking and talking. If I was ever professional, I'd be fired within a week.
Yeah, no.
Hey, for you, the people, I'll try my best.
I'm only here so I don't get fined.
For you.
Hey, that was quote from Co. And hey, you did get to actually pull some stuff out here too. I mean, what did we find out? He's playing wing. or fullback.
Yeah, we found out Andy Ellis FaceTimed him and on the beach, shirtless in Bermuda.
And he's a great guy, so there's that.
Assuming he's got a hot wife too.
And Co, I'm not even gonna touch that. Co is not gonna be kicking conversions or penalties. But we told him that he needs to keep on trying because we wanted to. $50 online for charity.
Last game of the year, coach put me in. I'm kicking it. $50.
We're not sure if he's going to be on the starting 23, but hey, we're rooting for him to be in that starting 23.
I'm drafting him regardless.
Drafting him regardless. And hey, you heard it here first, guys. Andrew Coe is going to pick his try celebration, or let the person who drafts him in our league. Within reason, of course.
Or without.
Nothing that's going to get him in trouble.
Yeah,
no,
we're fine.
Come on.
We're only here so we don't get
whoever drafts him is going to be able to pick his first try celebration. I think that is going to be hilarious. Yeah, I cannot wait for that. But yeah, hopefully we'll talk through him with him throughout the season.
Hey, the other thing we didn't really point out is I think people should note that he's kind of a bad boy. I mean, he's on World Rugby's hit list. Nobody knew he was on World Rugby's hit list.
With the fluorescent compression fans.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Now we know. Most wanted.
Most wanted by World Rugby for the. I didn't know that. Did you remember when you played with them at UBC? Do you remember the gold compression pants?
No, but World Rugby does.
World Rugby does. Hey, there's that. So yeah, we're gonna hopefully have him on throughout the season. He's gonna be kind of our guy that gets us the perspective of what it's like to be a player in the MLR. So stay tuned with that. Make sure to follow us to get notified when Andrew Coe or any other special guests come on our show by following us at the Fantasy Ruckers on all socials. Brand new episodes come out every Wednesday morning for you to listen to about the latest that's happening in our Fantasy Rugby League and special guests like this. It's going to be fun. So it is time to now finally move on. And we're going to speed through this quickly, guys, because I didn't realize that interview went as long as it did. I'm sure people are more interested in that interview than all these numbers that we're going to be spitting out here. Anyways,
he's got cooler stuff to say than us, man.
Yeah, exactly. We're just a bunch of fantasy ruckers, man, trying to do our job, I guess. Make fantasy rugby a thing. I don't know. It's kind of working so far. We got a lead. We'll see. So let's move on to that. And let's talk about that Fantasy Rugby League by getting into the news and notes of the MLR, the latest things, because a lot of the time throughout this season, that's what's going to have an impact on your decisions. Obviously, this is preseason, not much going out there, but there is some exciting news here, guys, and that is the MLR teams released the 2022 MLR jerseys. And it's kind of funny, Vandy and Matt, because we literally we talked about these jerseys, the last year's jerseys, literally last episode, and a couple days later they came out with the new ones, and both Vandy and Matt had some pretty critical things to say about some of these teams. Now I will say none of these names changed, so I think some of your stances may be the same, but
Mr. Gilchrist,
the Giltinis. But there are some jerseys that look pretty cool, and we're not going to go through each of them. It is released on MLR's website, and they did tweet it out on all their socials. What's it called? Hokie was nice enough to post it in our league Discord channel, so you can see it there as well. The link to that Discord, if you want to get involved in that community, is on our Reddit page. He posted it there too. But guys, initial thoughts on the 2022 kit reveal? Some improvements, maybe? Yeah,
some improvements. I mean, before the show, when we were talking, Vandy was pointing out that San Diego might have made an improvement in his books.
Yeah. New York looks a little bit better. Up the
Shout
out to Coe.
Shout out to Coe. Yeah, I mean, they still love that little, I don't know what to call it, but the fade out of color into black. I mean, the MLR needs to just, be a little creative.
Great song, though.
Quit fading colors out into black.
And I'm not sure if you have the jerseys in front of you, Vandy, but I'm looking at them here. If you had to pick one quickly as we move on to the fantasy format, which one now is your favorite? I think in the last episode, your favorite was Old Glory DC, and it looks like that team was one of the teams that didn't change as much, and that one is still high on my list. But now with the changes here, what do you think is your favorite?
I still like the Dallas one.
Yeah, I think it's that color, man. It's the teal color.
You know,
it's
something.
Nice.
If they fade that and keep those like kind of black dots throughout it, I mean that's such a crisp jersey.
Yeah,
but I would say
you're the person behind the fades.
Yeah, the Austin one actually, the Gilgronis.
Yo, you like that? That was on the bottom of your list, man.
I think,
dude, that was on the bottom of your list.
You know what? It sent me for a spiral when I found out Homie owned 2 teams. But you know what? I got to give him credit. Those jerseys look slick.
Hey, Mr. Gilchrist, you did something right in Vandy's books.
Right. There we go. He heard you and he made the jerseys better. That's step 1 done.
And let's sponsor a beer together, me and you. Drop the martinis.
The Vandy Brew.
Yeah.
Hey, I think.
And then they'll get the Tilsonburg Vandies, a pro MLR team.
Okay. Okay. Just 15 Vandies running around the field.
The beer is called Van Light. Easy.
Yep. There we go.
There we go.
Hey, I think this means that the MLR must be listening to us.
I think so.
I think there's no way that they would have released the jerseys right after we called them out and reviewed last year's jerseys.
Made improvements.
If you are listening,
made improvements. And
I can't remember what guy I want to get a beer with, the dude with the mullet. MLR. Get me in contact with this man.
Oh, he wants to go to beer with Andrew Quattro on the
Yes. That is my goal. From minute when I said it, I'm going to have a beer with
We might be able to make that happen. We'll see. Andrew Quattron went to a school that played in our league in high school. He played against Matt and I. So we'll see whether or not we could make that a possibility. But
if you're listening, if you are, that's incredible. We're going to do the beer trick. Pop the bottle, spin her down.
Oh my god! All right, we'll make sure to post that on socials.
Hey, we got a better chance now because he's good friends of the new friend of the show.
That's right,
Andrew Coe.
There we go. We're one step closer.
Helping friends.
All right, we're one step closer to getting Vandy drinking a beer with Andrew, Mr. Mullet, Quattron. Hopefully, we can.
I would like to say that Fantasy Ruckers does not promote underage drinking.
There we go.
We also promote responsible gambling. Do not drink and drive. Thank you.
There we go. There's our message for all our viewers from the Devin Vandy Vanderpool. Matt, before we move on, what's your favorite one on this list?
You know what? I mean,
don't even say.
Honestly, I like Arrow's improvements with the sponsor. The sponsor goes real nice with the jersey.
Okay.
It just looks like they're the Toronto Polar Bears.
You like it better than Honda? I don't know. I thought Honda was kind of like sleek.
Yeah, but now they're the Toronto Polar Bears, and now nobody can beat them.
It's true. It is a good sign, though, that it is a gambling site that is sponsoring the Arrow, so there is money coming into the MLR for sure. So let's move on. My last thing here, I think my last 2 tidbits is I think a lot of them still look too much like soccer jerseys. And my favorite one is still, I think, New England with those collars and the stripes. I love them. I don't know why. It's the collars and stripes that do it for me. But yeah, that's today's news and notes. We will make sure to bring you the latest on all the news and notes that you'll need to make the right roster moves throughout the season as we start getting those rolling. On Reddit right now, there's a bunch of roster moves that are happening, and I apologize, but I can't remember the username of the guy that's doing it, but he's posting all the roster moves that have happened so far throughout the offseason. It does in a really nice graphic, so go onto Reddit and check on there. We'll be using that heavily to help us with that news and notes, so just a little shout out there. But yeah, let's quickly move on to this fantasy rugby discussion, guys, because that's kind of this next big thing to get on this list before we head into kind of breaking down what the points are going to be like in this league, how they performed last year, and finalizing that. Let's talk about what we can do with this league, because we have officially announced all the rules and the format to our league members. We did a huge post, and thank you. Let me get to this. Thank you to everyone who submitted interest into joining our league. We got way more feedback and responses than we thought we were going to get. So thank you for all your support, and even people that weren't interested in joining and just want to follow along. Thank you for doing that, because we really appreciate it and helping our mission of making fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR. But that being said, we posted it to our league members. We got 6 other great guys in addition to you guys who are crazy enough to join you guys in trying to compete for this inaugural fantasy championship. I'm just going through the introductions here. We mentioned a couple of them already. We have Hokie from San Diego. There's another Ryan. So I don't know if that's going to be any favoritism here, but Ryan from San Diego too is going to be in the league. So hey, maybe I gotta be, be nicer to him as commissioner. He's got the same.
I'm vetoing all his trades now.
We got this weird guy in the league named Devin from Canada.
No, that's you.
I don't like that guy already.
We got Malcolm and Eugene. He's just a rugby fan. He'll be on following the league. Obviously, we got Matt here. A cool one, and I do highly suggest. This is not a plug, and it's not a sponsorship or anything, but there's a guy in our league. His name's John. He has started something called Rugby Morning, or he's a part of something called Rugby Morning, and it's a daily news email about North American rugby that goes out every morning. He has joined our league, wanting to kind of just follow along and just, journal the progress that he makes over this season, and he's been a part of it, and he actually gave us a shout out in his first email about his participation, so I got to give him a shout out here. So subscribe to his daily email. It's Rugby Morning on all the socials. You can find him there. He's been really helpful. It's all North American stuff, all compact into one email, so it's a really, really good, useful tool. I'll be definitely using it forward. We got John. He's originally from Singapore. He played rugby and played with actually Matthew, right? You guys played in the same program at UBC. He's from living in Vancouver now. And yeah, we got those guys and a bunch of other friends on here too to compete with this league. So it should be a lot of fun. And we also are all competing. And for all of you that didn't catch it that first episode, and I'm just going to quickly, because a lot of people have seen it, we have 8 teams competing in your total. They are going to be competing for a $100 donation to a charity of their choice, which we mentioned at the top of the show. Vandy has agreed that he will be doubling that going forward into this season.
That promise stands.
That promise still stands. I needed to confirm that in this episode, Vandy, because I wasn't sure. I don't know if you were just on the high of being on this new fantasy rugby train, but it sounds like you're still here, so you'll be doubling that up. And then we got Matt contributing $50 if Co kicks a conversion to that charity. And then we also mentioned for every team that beats Vandy, our in-house new rugby MLR fan, for every team that beats him in this league in the regular season standings, will contribute an extra $20 to that charity. So what is that? A total of $200 plus 7 people that can finish in front of you. So it's $140, $340. Co kicks a conversion, easy money. That's another $50. So $390 to charity, man. That's pretty good. I think we'll be helping out a pretty dang good cause this coming. So that's a little bit. So let's get into this format now, because there were now some deeper discussions, and I think people know what the structure is going to be like. I'll be posting a detailed message about the rules in our main Discord channel so everyone can be on the same page. So we're not going to go into depth here. I just want to have a conversation on whether those rules that we chose are the right ones and which ones we can change maybe before next week. By next week, we will be finalizing the rules for this 2022 season. So let's get into it. I think the biggest discussion, guys, and we'll hop right in, is the positions. So what we said last episode is the positions are 1 front row, 1 second row, 1 back row, a forward flex. Then we got a scrum half, fly half hybrid position, a center position, a back 3 position, and then a back flex position. Now, I will interject kind of the ideas that our league had based on those initial thoughts on that structure, but kind of your guys' initial thoughts on that setup. You kind of briefly talked about last episode, but what now after having a week of reflection in Vandy, after watching a couple games, what do you think about that setup?
I mean, I think the big conversation in the chat was around, I don't know if you're going to get this, but I think the big conversation was around the notion of mixing scrum half and fly half. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I saw that come up and I was thinking about it. But I just think that in order to make that position have a deeper pool and have people actually available that are worth it to get in the waiver wire, I think you need to combine the two. And the other thing is that the lowest scoring scrum half, or let's say the scrum half that is more of a distributor, doesn't, or maybe he isn't a distributor and he really runs really good support lines, getting points for try assist. Mm-hmm. They're almost as likely as a 10 who plays that same style of just moving the ball on and isn't going to be too involved in making gain line. So I think it just adds an element of, okay, who are you going to pick, a fly half or are you going to pick a scrum half, depending on their play styles? And that, I think that adds a new element and adds depth in the waiver wire for people to be able to really want to pick up guys there and have a quality waiver wire.
Yeah, no, yeah. I that's what I thought. Vanny, what do you think? I mean, being someone new to it and getting still familiar with his positions, what do you think?
I don't think I have too much to comment on this.
Yeah,
I just got to get a couple games under the belt and go from there until I can really kind of dissolve the positions and everything.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right on it, Matt. The biggest conversation, at least in our league Discord channel, was the fact of the scrum half and fly half positions are combined. That's what I came up with. Now, I think this is a good opportunity for us to bring up these topics and for me to kind of explain my reasoning on why I went that direction. And then we can have a further conversation on the Discord channel with the league members about whether or not they understand my thinking. And then at least we can go from there and vote on actual rules, because I will mention to everyone, all of these rules are not hard set in stone. I want the people. I told you on the first episode, I'm a commissioner of the people, right? And you guys know, come on, don't give me those faces. So I want the league to choose what they're most comfortable with. So I've just decided, after going through a lot of the stats and a lot of the games, what I think is best. But that doesn't mean that, by all means, that doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be like going forward. We're going to choose that and decide that as a league before next week. But that being said, my ideology behind this scrum half, fly half hybrid position was the fact that mainly was just the depth of position, because you're only choosing one. And if you look at all the positions that I've laid out, all of the positions have multiple positions that can go within it, just so that we have it in depth. The MLR does not have that many teams. There's only 13 teams in the league, as opposed to, let's say, 30 in the NFL. With that being said, with us already having 8 teams, if we were to split that scrum half and fly half position, that means 8 of the 13 fly halves and scrum halves will be already taken on everyone's teams. That means the waiver wire for scrum halves and fly halves will be thin. And if you don't draft one early, and you don't draft, or if you don't draft a good one, you are going to be stuck with a bad one for the rest of the season. Now, you could argue that could be the strategy, and that just changes how people approach the draft. But I think there is an element of having a waiver wire. And like to your point, Matt, scrum halves and fly halves offer different points. You know, scrum halves might get more try assists because they handle the ball more, and they're mostly the carrier that touches the ball before, let's say, a forward scores it on a forward run. They get that try assist there. And then more fly halves maybe distribute the ball out to the winger, so they may get other try assists. Or fly halves also tend to be a lot of kick converters, so you'll have those extra points that are going there. To separate the two, for me, makes the position at each of them too shallow, and the discrepancy between the top fly halves and the bottom fly halves, and the top scrum halves and the bottom fly halves, would give teams such a big advantage that if you don't have good positions, that bottom team has no shot at even competing with a team that has a good scrum half or fly half. So by counteracting that, let's combine them so that there's more waiver possibility for guys to at least have an opportunity to compete with better players.
Yeah, and I mean, scrum half and fly half are already positions that in real life lack depth in these shallower leagues of not shallower leagues, but I guess the lower grade compared to Super Rugby. Finding depth at the 10 and 9 position is already difficult in real life for these teams. I mean, how can you expect fantasy rugby players to try and find depth in a guy who, pick up a guy off the bench because that's all you got, and you have him sitting on your bench because he plays maybe 10, 20 minutes a game. Whereas if all the good fly halves that I want are out, then okay. Now I look at a scrum half and I say, okay, this guy can equate what the fly half that I wanted could produce.
Right.
So I think it just adds that element. And I don't know if you're saying or giving this out yet, but I don't know how your points, calculating already the points of the scrum halves and fly halves went. But I'm assuming to make this decision, they must have been fairly similar outside of conversions.
Yeah, that's the biggest point here, is that I think each of them offers a perk, and I think it'll be an interesting dynamic on teams having to choose that route. Because the argument that was made in our league chat was they're quote unquote the quarterbacks and the running backs, Vandy, of rugby. They handle the ball the most, they distribute the ball the most, so the opportunity for points are the most. So you have to have individual slots for them in that. But I guess I would argue is that let's treat them both as the quarterback. right? They both facilitate the ball. Just imagine it being the running quarterback versus the standstill quarterback. One just throws a lot of touchdowns, one has a lot of rushing yards. What are you going to choose here? The fly half may not handle the ball as much, but he has maybe that higher power offense because he distributes it to the wingers more, and he has that ability to break open for a try. Whereas a scrum half may not have that ability. He distributes it more, and he may get those try assists. I think it'll be an interesting dynamic between the two. Funny enough, though, as I was going through the points, and we will have those points after we decide the league rules for next show. So we're going to release the 2021 player rankings next episode. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But it was interesting as I broke down the conversions and the penalties. With it being valued, which what we said, and we'll get into the scoring where it is, with 3 points being penalties and 2 points conversions for our fantasy league, kickers were very highly powered. And that was a lot of the fly halves, so we may have to address that. I'm thinking about maybe shifting those points over, but that's to your point. Fly halves, there were a lot of fly halves on that position that was boosting them up that way. And then you had scrum halves up there too, who were high on those try assists. So interesting there.
But I mean, that's also moving on. I mean, the back flex.
Yep.
I can have if I really want, I have a fly half that I know is going to kick a lot of conversions. Maybe he's not great at other facets of the point scoring system, but maybe I get him. Or, speaking of what Vandy was bringing up earlier, the Ryback winger on Giltini's. I mean, that guy's got to be up there in the draft, because I think you noticed in the final game, he's getting the ball so much and so often to just hit the game line. I mean, did you see that? Did you see that while you were watching the game?
Well, I would say the thing about him was, I guess he came over from a different league, I think a higher touted league, and it just seemed like his I wouldn't even know how to put it. Like, his whole demeanor and everything was just different. He
knew
was
where
super
to be.
aggressive.
It seemed like
he knew where to be. Like, there was one great example where it was two guys were almost locked up with each other. The one gentleman made a behind the back pass, and he could see it from a mile away. He knew the ball wasn't initially coming to him, but he starts full tilt booking it down the middle of the field, and all the guy had to do was literally almost like a handoff in football, and he was gone.
Yeah.
There was one guy defending, not a chance, and it just seemed like his understanding of the game. I wouldn't say necessarily like his touches were unbelievable or anything. It was just what he did with them.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting too, because there are certain players, and obviously a lot of his experience playing at a high level has to do with that. But I think also certain teams, and I noticed it with you, I think with the final too, is that with players like John Ryberg, who just have that act of being able to make big plays. It's nothing special, but just when they touch the ball, they're able to break the line and do these things. I think a lot of that has to do with them realizing that and putting them in the position to get that. So you'll see him, even though he's a winger, you'll see him getting involved in those inside line plays. They'll bring him in on those set piece plays because they know, even though he may be out of position conventionally, by putting him in that situation, he has a high opportunity.
That's how he scored on his first try. He was literally out of position.
Yeah.
And he knew that was the play to make.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's how they said he's a monster out on the wing.
Yeah, he's a winger built like a hooker. I mean, what are you going to do? He's got the
that's literally how they define him. They're like, this man is almost too big to play his position.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting how we kind of are able to identify those guys that they try to highlight. You know what I mean? Like, we'll start to see, okay, they're putting John Ryberg in those positions to succeed. He's a really high player to select, because he may not kick conversions, he may not kick penalties, he may not get try assists, but it seems like he's always there being able to get those tries. So it'll be interesting to see what players are able to do.
And Vandy, you brought this up earlier, and just talking about guys you can kind of sit in your lineup, that they're going to be starting.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure on how often he played last season, but I mean, he looks like a guy that you would put in your lineup in the back three position somewhere. You'd draft him, you'd have him, and you could sit him reliably knowing that, one, he's going to get the ball at some point in the game, and two, without injury, he's probably going to be starting for them, or at least doing some really good production off the bench. So
it'll be like Coach said, the war of attrition with these guys. It'll truly, because it sounds like it's almost the tail end of his career. I think it was number 9 as well. It was tail end. It just, veteran guys. So it'll be kind of interesting to see, like I mentioned earlier, are we seeing a guy who's playing 40 minutes, but he's going to guarantee a try a game kind of deal?
Well, that was it too, right? Was I guess to that the last point on that whole scrum half, fly half thing is that by being able to hybridize that position, at least in our fantasy league, you're going to be able to react quicker if, let's say, a scrum half or a fly half gets listed as out. You know what I mean? Like, let's say a lineup going in, you're expecting that they're going to start, Andy Ellis as at 9 for New York, and you have him on your team. But let's say, because the MLR is infamous for doing this, and one of our league members mentioned this in our Discords, they're infamous for releasing lineups late. And there is a rule in our league where you need to submit your lineups to me by the first kickoff game of that week. But if a player who you have in your starting lineup doesn't start, and it doesn't play. I shouldn't say doesn't start, because if he subs in and still gets points, he still gets points. But if he doesn't play and isn't listed in that lineup, you're allowed to replace him with a player that has not started their game yet. So with that being said, by having that scrum half, fly half hybridized position, if a scrum half gets listed as out or doesn't dress for last minute, you'll be able, and he was in that hybrid position, you'll be able to replace him easier than having a league that only has, what will be 5 available scrum halves in the roster pool. I guess including subs, they'll be different. You can pick up the other guy, but I don't know. It just be interesting to see. But that is one of the hottest topics in our league chat, is the scrum half, fly half position, which I'm sure will continue on. But yeah, we'll see how it's going. So yeah, I want all our league members to make sure, get some input, talk in the Discord channel, let us know what you think on not just that positional rule, but all the positions, and we'll go on based on that. We'll hold some league votes to decide on what to go with. But I think it is a good starting format, and we can adjust accordingly. And then just quickly, guys, let's go into the points here. Not as much lashback at that. I'm keeping it the same, basically, that we discussed in episode 1. 5 points for a try, 2 points for a try conversion, just like it's worth in real fantasy, or in real rugby, 3 points for a penalty, and then 2 points for a try assist, and then we're counting the distance meters. Now, to add some clarity to our league members, the way I'm calculating distance meters is physically watching the game. So there is going to be some discrepancy with it. But I have implemented a strategy, and I don't know if you guys are hearing this for the first time, but like I said, and this is the theme of keeping this a league of the people, if anyone has a dispute with any of the statistical points that I've given out, they can bring it to my attention. And if it is of reasonable, if it's somewhat reasonable and it is somewhat, okay, we can have a look at that, I will put it to a league vote. And if a majority of the league agrees that he is right, or whatever decision, so let's say I said that try is 22 meters. And the guy comes back to me and says, no, that try was actually 24 meters. And then I can go into the league and say, hey, what do you guys think? We'll pull a clip from it. Everyone will vote, and then we'll decide that way. That way, I don't have all the power. You guys will have it too. So that's with the distance meters. But I'm actually, the only thing about the points that I'm kind of teetering on, and we explained the whole defensive point format as well. So if you have any questions with that, make sure to comment in the Discord channel as well. But that was fully explained last episode. I'm thinking about minimizing the kicks, penalties, and the conversions by half. What I have so far done with all the stats, and I'm still in the process of doing all the stats of the 2021 season, kickers, and each team is going to designate a kicker heading into their week, become too powerful when you give them the full denotion. I mean, if you look at it, one penalty kick is worth more than half a try. And whether or not that is worth what it is, I don't know. But the discrepancy between guys who kick versus guys who don't kick was a far gap. Now, I don't know if you want to keep that gap or keep it a little bit closer. That's the discussion to have. It's interesting.
My thoughts on it is there's only one kicker you can designate per team. There's 8 teams. There's 13 teams. Every team in the league is going to have a kicker that's going to kick penalties. Everybody has a shot at one of those guys.
Yeah.
You can draft a guy just for their kicking ability, and he does nothing else. And the team kicks a lot of penalties. I think that it should be kept the same, because everybody has a shot at a kicker. There's not like there's 7 kickers in the league and 8 teams, but everybody gets a shot at one. It's a matter of who has the first draft pick, who decides to take the shot first on a kicker strategy or a guy who kicks and maybe isn't as good on the other aspects.
Right.
And hey, if he's good at both, that guy's going to be probably first or second off the board.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. And I mean, that brings up the idea of those guys being kind of the quarterbacks of our fantasy league. I guess that's the big question is I think a lot of people are trying to relate and try to get a grasp or at least a reference point of what these players are going to kind of perform like. And I think a lot of people are relating it to fantasy football and they're trying to find those parallels between what's the same position. So there's a lot of concerns between who's going to be the quote unquote quarterback of this format, who's going to be quote unquote the tight end of this format. It's looking like kickers are going to be the quarterbacks. It looks like it's going to be the wingers that are going to be quote unquote the wide receivers who get those big explosive play points. But it'll be interesting to see. There's that conversation to have, whether or not we should change the point system, which we'll have in our league group. And then also whether or not maybe we should penalize kickers for missing conversions and missing penalties. But for those of you new to rugby, those kicks aren't uniform. The ones that are outside on the sidelines when the score is tried out in the corner is much harder to make than one in front of the post. And also the MLR has that new rule where if you score under the points, it's an automatic 7-point try. They don't even kick. So it's interesting dynamics here that we'll have to decide as a league group, but I think it will be an interesting conversation going forward, not the least, when it comes to both the player format, the scoring, and any other rules that we should implement. But yeah, those are kind of the in-depth rules. Any initial strategies, guys, or anything that you guys are kind of thinking of here that come to mind as we kind of slowly wrap up this show, as now you know more about the league and have a little bit more fantasy rugby experience?
I mean, my first thought, or at least I got two thoughts, is one, like you said, I mean, I think kickers are going to be named in the game. Find yourself a good kicker on a team that loves to kick penalties. That's going to be somebody that I'll be going for. And two, a hooker that scores tries. I mean, I think that's going to be the gold mine right there. And a hooker that scores tries, that's somebody I want on my team because that guy is working in a system that works for him, and he's working in that system. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Vandy, what do you think so far, just surrounding
keep my cards tight, buddy.
Too much.
You're not getting a cent out of me.
Hey, I'm just giving you some help so that you can make your way to the top alongside me. Maybe. We'll see.
Well, now it's funny because now that you've actually met the league members, I don't know if anything has changed because, Vandy, you're pretty big-chested and talking crap to these guys. And now that they've actually introduced themselves, I'm not sure if you're still as big-chested now. Maybe it's enticed it even more. But some of these guys, man, they're going to be hunting for that top spot. And that just means more money is going to be going to charity.
Hey, Hokie and Ryan, those San Diego fans, they're gunning for you.
Yeah.
They're both gunning for you for chirping the boys.
I just have you know, I regret none of what I said.
Oh, there we go. Well, with that said, with now Vanny getting all hot and bothered, man, I'm not gonna give you the single shot on this one because it's just an easy, lax, hot mic here. But Vandy, I know. I'll start. I'll set you up. I'll give you a layup here. All right, Vandy. Okay. So for all of you listening, we may not have explained this clearly at the first episode, but Vandy is a brand new, not just an MLR fan, he's a brand new rugby fan. And he needs some help here. He needs some help from the people to kind of get his footing on where should he go with this? Who should he like? What color should he wear? You see him wearing the Chiefs uniform, the Kansas City Chiefs uniform. 5 years ago, that guy wasn't even wearing a Chiefs uniform, but it was all about fantasy football that got him into it.
That's
wrong. So we're hoping
6 years ago it wasn't.
6 years ago. So we're hoping fantasy rugby does the same. So that's where you, the listeners, and the fantasy rugby and the fantasy Ruckers community come in. We will be posting up a poll on all the socials asking what team should Vandy cheer for going forward in the MLR and why. So we want to hear from both our league members. We want to hear from both. Can we already just say
it's going to be San Diego? After what I said, it's going to be San Diego.
It might be. I don't know. There's a lot of cool jerseys
look sick. And if I got to say anything,
keep on telling yourself that. There you go.
Chiefs were that great. Chiefs were that great. I become a fan.
And then,
Chiefs were that great. I become a fan. We draft the future of the franchise and go on to win a Super Bowl within 7 years of me becoming a fan. So San Diego, when I get your jersey, we're in for good things.
Hey, the people will see about that.
I guess we'll find out whether or not.
I was pretty hard on those Martini guys too.
Yeah, you're pretty hard on.
Yeah,
you're pretty hard.
No.
Hey,
Mr. Gilchrist. Mr. Gilchrist, you need
Mr. Gilchrist.
Yeah,
Mr. Gilchrist, you need the criticism, sir. You need to stop naming things after yourself.
Homie, me and you are gonna make a beer together.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna be called the Gil beer. That's
good one. Hey, good one.
Yeah, that's gonna be a Gil beer.
So yeah, no, it's it'll be interesting to see what they choose as your favorite team. I already told Vandy, whatever team you guys choose, we are sending him a jersey of some sort to get him starting to rep his favorite team. We'll see whether or not that has any impact on who he drafts this fantasy league. So we want you out there, league members, community members, all of you in the fantasy rugby community, to let us know who Vandy should cheer for and why. Yeah, like we said, we already had some San Diego cheers from some of our league members. But with that being said, Vandy, you have a little message. You have a little message for those community members that have the ability in their hands now to choose your favorite team. What do you want in your favorite team? Give them a little pitch on what you're looking for your future MLR team that you will be cheering for.
Well, I kind of touched on it already. We're just saying, basically, with whatever, I don't want to say I'm stuck with, but whatever I'm gifted with, we become champions. We become good. Not only good, we become great. We'll get some big name guys. We'll hold our hands, and we'll all become champions together. So you want to stick me with, I don't even know who came last, San Diego? Okay.
I think it was Houston.
Become champions.
The Saber Cats,
Houston.
baby.
Perfect. I love cats.
There we go. So, hey, all Vandy says is whatever team you give them, they're going to be the champions in 2022. So, hey, I think that means you need to be rooting for Vandy to be a fan of your team and for him to be repping your jersey, hopefully in the next couple weeks, which will be interesting. But hey, guys, pretty fun episode there. It was a lot of fun talking with Andrew Coe. It was fun going through the deeper discussion. Any last thoughts about fantasy rugby? 2021 fantasy top fantasy players going to be released next year. 2 weeks out from our first MLR fantasy draft. 3 weeks out from the start of the season. Guys, any final thoughts heading into as we wrap up episode number 2 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show?
I'm looking forward to the rankings, and I'm looking even more forward to now I know the names of the people that will be in tombstones at the end of the season. Because I'm going to end all of you.
Oh my gosh. And he's talking to all our league members out there. So, hey, league members, make sure you jot that down.
Shaking in my
give
boots.
Give you a little bit of competitive edge here going for a little bit of competitive drive in this 2022 season. Vandy, any last thoughts after episode 2?
Yeah. I'm going to draft John Ryberg. I'm going to draft my newfound friend Coe. And I'm drafting Mullet. And we're just going to literally ride this out on a unicorn to charity. And it's going to be great. It's going to be magical. And it's going to be sweet.
So you know Vandy's strategy. So for 6 of you league members out there listening, you know who to snipe for when the draft comes up in a couple weeks time. But yeah, we did learn here, guys. Andrew Coe will be doing his first MLR try. Not even MLR try. His first professional rugby career try will be decided. The celebration for it will be decided by a league member.
By Matt Yee.
Because you drafted him by a league member in this league, whoever drafts Coe. I think that's going to be hilarious, and we hope now friend of the show Andrew Coe will be on for many more episodes to come, guys. So it should be a good one. So yeah, make sure you stay tuned. If you guys are a league member in this league, make sure to hop into the Discord chat, share your thoughts on what you think about the rules, the format, the scoring. We will be finalizing those rules, format, and scoring by next Monday. Polls will be released for you to vote on that after we have a nice little discussion with our league. Hopefully it doesn't get too heated. I know Vandy is looking for some
he wants to smoke.
Yeah, he wants to smoke. Vandy
Just remember, people, he wants to smoke.
So make sure you stay tuned for that, where the rules will then be applied to release the 2021 top fantasy players that you will then use to prep for the 2022 MLR draft. That episode will come out next Wednesday. Make sure you stay tuned, and make sure you follow us on at the Fantasy Ruckers at all the social media channels, including YouTube. The interview with Andrew Coe will be on this episode on the podcast, and the full episode and the full interview will be on YouTube. Well, until then, and until the next time that we are on, stay good, guys, and keep on trying making fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR.
Hey, like the LA Rams said on Monday, be love.
Be love, baby. Be love on the back of the helmets. Thanks, guys. Till next time.
Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.